So I decided to take a month off from creating content, and every month you have the JW Broadcasting episodes, and they just make it so difficult for you to get a rest. You gotta talk about the stuff that they say, because, well, it's the governing body. Don't sue me, bro. Hello and welcome to Ex-Witness Awake. I am your host, Jonathan. I hope that you are having a great day. This month, the episode features one of the newer members of the governing body, either Jeffrey Winder or Gage Fleegle. I have trouble remembering which. I think it's the Jeff. Gage Fleegle. But let's take a look at some clips, and then we'll talk about the things that they have to say, which, well, are generally pretty iffy at best.
Do you like mysteries or puzzles? What about secrets? Are you good at keeping honorable secrets confidential? Jehovah had a secret that he kept for about 4,000 years. Unlike human secrets, which often are difficult to keep confidential, Jehovah's sacred secret would be revealed only by divine revelation. In other words, Jehovah would reveal the details only in his due time.
What's in the box?
How would Jehovah fix the damage caused by the rebellion in the Garden of Eden? Jehovah said to the serpent who deceived Eve, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will crush your head, and you will strike him in the heel."
So here we have Gage talking about the prophecies, a whirlwind tour of the Bible, starting in the Garden of Eden and finishing at the end of days. Brother Fleegle is enjoying a prop. They do like to use props now and again. You may remember some of these buttes.
The two pails represent 1 week in a Christian's life. The large rocks represent
I've seen
the
rocks
most
before.
important
How
things
relatable.
we need to accomplish during the week. And all these little pebbles represent the non-essential things of life: recreation, playing games, playing
We
sports.
have 3 beautiful loaves of bread.
Beautiful.
This is garlic powder. This is basic old mud.
Don't use mud. You'll ruin that beautiful bread.
This represents poison. And we have a trash can.
We could illustrate the balance between different Bible principles and applying them with this model bike. It was
Ooh, a
gift
tiny
from brother in
bicycle. How
Malawi.
lovely.
Now, a bicycle has 3 basic principles.
Lame.
So I wonder who got the assignment of creating the magical box containing the crystal that was probably purchased online for $2.50. Now, this talk feels like something you might have seen when the circuit overseer is visiting your congregation using a prop. It's meant to get your attention, to keep you focused on the illustration that he's bringing out. And that's probably about the most exciting thing that you're going to get. I remember most talks are just extremely boring, so having some sort of a prop to focus on, at least it makes it somewhat interesting. But on a level of interest from 0 to 10, it's about a 1.5. It's not that great.
I love to preach. I love to talk about Jehovah. Whenever I'd read the experiences of pioneers and missionaries in the yearbooks, I wanted to feel the same joy and the same feeling that they had. When I heard about the announcement about the campaign, I knew that that was my chance. The first challenge was the pressure I got from others. Why go somewhere so far? You could use that money to travel somewhere more beautiful. You could even travel to another country. These types of comments did affect me a bit. Other times it was more a question of finances. I once had to decide whether I would accept an opportunity to work at a good job in the public sector, or whether to turn that opportunity down. But participating in that campaign was my chance to do more for Jehovah. I knew this experience would be life-changing. Throughout the campaign, we met so many sincere people, some who had never heard Jehovah's name, or who didn't even know what Bible was. One experience that stuck with me was when I tried explaining to someone what the Bible was. And then her eyes just beamed when she understood that it was a message from God to her personally. There's a Bible student who is...
The first experience is that of a sister from Brazil who is involved in a special campaign to where she would talk to people and study with them. This particular family, where they were 5 days' journey away from the Kingdom Hall, and apparently would make it to the meeting all the time. I'm not sure how that worked. They must have lived on the road.
Kingdom Hall. I would bring a Bible, a phone, and a tablet, and I would pass them around and try to help them. There's no doubt that having these experiences was well worth it. I know that participating in this campaign was the best decision. I started to truly see Jehovah as a real friend. And it was also wonderful to spend time with a variety of brothers and sisters during the campaign. It helped me mature spiritually. I planned to go for a month and ended up staying there for 5 years. If I could, I'd do it all over again.
But, yeah, she did this on her own dime. She talked about how she wasn't sure she was going to be able to do this because of the finances involved. So you have people who volunteer their time. They're not paid to go out, or if they are, they might be paid like a little stipend or something just to survive. But, you know, it's their life that they're giving to the organization. This particular person thought she was only going to do it for a few months and ended up doing it for 5 years. So we don't really know what she has to show for it. That is a lot of time. That's a big chunk of someone's life. And there are people who do it for much longer than that. And what do they have to show in the end? Maybe some interesting experiences because they went to someplace different from what they grew up in. I thought, you know, it would be cool to travel to foreign countries and it'd be sort of like a vacation. But after a while, you just sort of realize that you're doing free labor and you're putting a lot of your time and energy into something that isn't really going to benefit you in the end. You think it does until you realize that your life is gone and you don't get that time back. Also, those people that were walking into the Kingdom Hall, they looked rather tired from their journey and kind of bored and probably thinking, why did I do this? But, you know, that's just my own fan fiction, I guess, because I really don't know what's in the heads and hearts of these people.
My family owns a guest house, and my father said that we were going to host a group for a campaign. But I never had contact with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, this episode is all about Brazil, apparently. The second one is also from Brazil.
The pastor of my church said that I should
She
be
was told by her
careful
church
about
leader that
having
she should
contact
avoid
with
talking to Jehovah's Witnesses because it's dangerous. And yeah, because she ended up studying with them and eventually became one.
With them. I would see them leaving early for the ministry. But one day, there was a sister that didn't go out. And I thought, she's going to try to preach to me. And that's what she did. So, since she was already staying at the inn, I started studying with her. But at first, it was just to prove her wrong. As I kept studying, though, I could see that what I was learning was really making sense.
Very often it is the feeling that they get is what draws them in. They see the group that is supposed to be super friendly and they're playing guitar and having a great time talking and everyone's being nice. And when they go to the Kingdom Hall, everyone love bombs them. They're being nice to them. The things that they say, they seem to have an answer for everything because they have done a lot of research and they have found effective ways to approach people and use their circumstances and use what it says in their version of the Bible that is tailored to lead you in a certain direction mentally. So, yeah, this very easily could have been a film that was made where two Mormons came up to them, came up to the inn and started talking, and they thought, this makes sense.
I thought it was so beautiful to see how joyful they always were.
If you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, it's highly unlikely that your life has been sunshine and rainbows and joyous all the time. You have problems just like everybody else. People get sad, people get depressed, people have problems that come up in their life that they have to deal with, and it's stressful. They're not joyful all the time. They're not don't have permanent smiles plastered on their face. Though at the meetings, they try to. If you ask, hey, how's it going? And you get a negative response, you almost don't know what to do with that because they're supposed to be joyful and like, oh, things aren't wonderful with you? How strange. Rely on Jehovah.
I hated the world situation. There was so much suffering. And I always had so many questions. Why are we here? What is it all about? What is the purpose? Is there really a God? Could he allow all of this? So I opened the window and I stuck my head out and I said, if you're there, I want you to know how I feel about you. I was raised in a religious Jewish family in the Bronx. My parents viewed money as security, and they worked 7 days a week. That really affected us as children a lot. I was a child let on the loose. I was running the streets. And so I started using drugs, and I started selling drugs, and I was getting in every kind of trouble. And so they moved us out to Long Island, hoping things would be better. But I would take a taxi back into New York City every day. But one of the drivers was named Joe, and we hit it off, and I wound up marrying him. My father was so upset. I'm married, I'm pregnant. I said to him, I'm moving out, and he said to me, don't look back because this is final. So my family had disowned me. I was a new mother with a baby, and I was really hurting.
I find it to be a little bit tone deaf when it comes to shunning. She was raised Jewish, and she was a young mother who was newly married, and her family, her father specifically, disowned her because of this. And they, of course, highlight how sad that is. And somebody watching that in the congregation is probably thinking, like, how terrible that someone would do that to you. Good thing that she found Jehovah. It's hard to understand how they don't see how this relates to things that happen all the time in the congregation when it comes to shunning. Her father disowned her, and when it comes to the congregation, everyone will disown you. They have nothing to do with you. Now, maybe they'll say hi, but that's it. And that's if you're at the meeting. It is tone deaf because people are there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who are affected by this very thing, and they're making it out like it's people of the world who do it.
So I remember one day looking out the window and seeing this little old man come up my stairs, and he was carrying a little blue book. And he came to my door and he wanted 25 cents for that book, The Truth That Leads to Eternal Life. And I didn't really care about the book, but something made me want to give that little old man that quarter. Right away, chapter 4 caught my attention, Why We Grow Old and Die. And I read the entire chapter and I thought, it just made sense. I can't wait to share this with Joe when he comes home. He just lost his temper. He went out of control. He did not want to hear about Jehovah's Witnesses. This is not that important. This book was really not that important. I didn't want it to begin with. And so I just dropped it in the trash can and thought, that's the end of that. It's gone. But that little old man came back with a young sister, and Joe was there cutting an orange with a knife, and he was not happy to see those people again. He took that knife and he waved it in front of the sister's face, and he said, I don't want you here at the house. She ran to the door and she said, no problem. I will definitely not be back. And they left, and I thought, I really don't think they'll be back. But they did come back, an elderly sister who had a Jewish background. And I said to her, can you not take a hint that I am not interested in speaking with you? And she said, I get that. I get that, but I really would love to ask you just one question.
Now, she goes on to talk about this little old brother who approached her and placed the truth book with her for 25 cents, back when they charged for that sort of thing. And she thought, because her husband was upset by it. And then him and a sister come back and the husband waves a knife at them, basically, and they're like, well, I'm out. Now, that should have been it, because clearly they didn't want to speak to the Jehovah's Witnesses. But they didn't put it down as a do not call, which I don't understand. I think that's a pretty clear do not call when they're waving a knife at you. And then this older sister shows up, and she is told, can't you get a hint? But apparently she can't get a hint, because even though she knows clearly that they do not want to speak to her, she doesn't care. She's going to say what she's going to say, and she just barrels on through with zero respect for the wishes of the householder. That's not cool. If someone doesn't want to talk to you, just leave it alone. Go talk to the next person on the road.
She opened up the Green Bible to the cover page where it has the Tetragrammaton, Jehovah's name in Hebrew. And she said, will you just say this name for me? I thought to myself, I'm not going to say that name. Jewish people don't say that name. I have never, ever said that name. But finally, I did. I said Yehovah. For the very first time, I said the name Jehovah. And I was like, so shocked. You know, I was just waiting for something terrible to happen. And then she told me that the name Jehovah was in the Bible about 7,000 times. As soon as she left, I went and got out my Hebrew Bible. And I was going to look for that name, Jehovah, and circle it if it was there. So I started to do that. I went through the first page, the second page, and I realized as I flipped through the Bible, it's everywhere. The name Jehovah was everywhere.
Now, she went into her Hebrew Bible and found that Jehovah's name was all over the place, the Tetragrammaton. And she thought, wow, that's neat. I'm wondering if she went into the Greek scripture, the New Testament, and looked for the same thing, because we know that the Jehovah's Witnesses have inserted Jehovah's name, God's name, into the Greek scriptures. Places where Lord is seen, they throw in, well, that must be God, so let's go ahead and throw God's name in there. And also, that name is relatively new. Something like the 7th century, having to do with a scribe, a monk or something, that decided to put that in there.
Jehovah's Witnesses have helped millions of people to learn the truth through a variety of methods, including, of course, this channel, JW Broadcasting. Today, we use videos in our preaching, meetings, schools, and conventions. But did you know that Jehovah's organization first used motion pictures more than 100 years ago? This episode of our History in Motion traces that rich history. Let's watch.
Today, we use videos just about everywhere in our worship and ministry. But did you know that Jehovah's people started using film and video to preach and teach more than 100 years ago? Let's see how and why in this episode of Our History in Motion. When the early Bible students first began preaching in the late 1800s, the motion picture industry was in its infancy. But even then, C.T. Russell and his associates recognized the power of this new medium. Film could be used not only to reach wider audiences, but to touch hearts with Bible truth. At a convention in June 1913, the Bible students passed a bold resolution, supporting the use of motion pictures as a new tool for preaching and teaching. Less than a year later, in January 1914, the brothers debuted the photo drama of creation. The 8-hour production included color slides and motion picture film, most of it footage that Russell purchased from other studios. Imagine sitting in a packed auditorium and seeing, possibly for the first time, moving pictures of events described in the Bible. And there was something else in the photo drama that really took audiences by surprise.
The photo drama of creation is presented by the IBSA, the International Bible Students Association.
Synchronized dialogue. The photo drama played in theaters and auditoriums around the world. But what if film could be used to teach the truth not just in big theaters, but right in a person's own living room? That was the idea behind a series of short films released in the 1920s. These silent films, chronicling the travels of J.F. Rutherford in the Bible lands, were designed to be shown at home.
This part is talking about the use of media, film making specifically, that was used even in the old days. They talk about the photo drama of creation Now, they're showing little bits here and there, but they're not going to show too much of it. You're not going to see a special presentation on jw.org of the entire photo drama, of all 8 hours of it, because a lot of it is some crazy, wacky stuff that is very far removed from the organization today. It would be considered apostate in nature. Even in what they show, there's an image here where it talks about this projector. It says, at home, showing a few neighbors the symbolism of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. So we're talking about pyramidology, to where Russell went and he measured the inches in the Great Pyramid in Giza and used that as a means to come up with different dates and important events in time. That's something they definitely don't do anymore.
Over the next 2 decades, the organization used radio and the phonograph rather than film to reach more people with the kingdom message.
Radio killed the phonograph.
The governing body recognized the need for interested ones to see for themselves the international scope of the organization. So they again turned to film with the release of The New World Society in Action. This 1 hour and 20-minute film transported viewers to our Bethel facilities and international conventions. It gave them a taste of what it's like to preach in some of the remotest parts of the world. Additional films, released over the next several years, further highlighted the work of God's people and the fulfillment of Bible prophecies. Then, in 1966, we released Heritage. This 28-minute feature was unflinching in its portrayal of the real-world problems young people face.
Within the next 60 seconds,
Refund
another family
madness.
somewhere in the United States will be strained to the breaking point. What's this? Just a family quarrel? No, it is far more
This guy
serious than
really
that.
wants salty
What is it
food.
doing to this family? Following Bible principles builds a solid family foundation.
Heritage was presented at circuit assemblies and other large gatherings. It was also shown on more than 150 television stations in the United States. After 1966, the organization shifted away from film and began presenting modern and biblical dramas live on stage at conventions. These dramas brought Bible accounts to life for young and old, and were one of the highlights of large conventions for many years. But as the 1990s approached, new technologies emerged that prompted our brothers to revisit motion pictures yet again. Video cassette players could be found in more and more homes.
Who can forget early depictions of Jehovah's Angel destroying the Assyrian army?
And so, in 1990, we released our very first video, Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization behind the name. It took viewers behind the scenes and built appreciation for how our literature is produced and used in the global preaching work. The Faithful and Discreet Slave has made extensive use of video ever since. Motion picture technology has changed dramatically in 100 years. But the objective of Jehovah's organization in using it has always been the same: to touch the hearts of people everywhere with Bible truth.
Jehovah has always understood the power of visuals. He gave the prophets visions. And now we have the technology that combines visual power and emotional impact. Digital technology continues to change, but our goal has not: to reach the heart.
Actually, the objective is stay the same, to touch people's hearts and make them feel a certain way, so that you can use their personal circumstance and their own tragedies against them to rope them into your cult. Visual power and emotional impact. They're playing on people's emotions to get them to do what they want.
Well, this thing seems to be going a lot longer than it needs to, so I'm going to split this up into 2 parts. Also, my camera quit partway through the recording, so I might as well redo the parts that were messed up anyway. So please join me next week for the part 2 of the August broadcast. With that, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will catch you later. Bye for now.